We all know Netflix is no stranger to controversy, though the form of controversy they're used to is simply getting their shows boycotted off the site. There have been times where people went above and beyond just getting the show taken off, but to actually sue the mega streaming platform. Here are some examples of such action being taken. Linda Fairstein. Linda Fairstein was an attorney and former New York City prosecutor turned American author. She is the author behind the best-selling books that detail the life of prosecuting attorney Alexandra Cooper. While some may know Linda Fairstein as no more than simply just a writer, she's also widely known for the hand she played in the case of the Central Park Five, a story that gained a lot of attention due to its heartbreaking nature. It gained so much attention that Netflix aired the miniseries When They See Us to get the story out. Many people were pleased with the show, but not everybody. Linda Fairstein claimed that the show portrayed her as an overzealous prosecutor and a bigot, which she claims she's not. Fairstein alleged defamation to 5 of the scenes that included her withholding evidence, coercing confessions, and directing a racially discriminatory police roundup of young men in Harlem. She had already lost claims on more than half of the scenes that she said she had found objectionable, a federal judge ruled. Although she was denied the claims she already made, she was advised that she could pursue further on the defamation cases. Alan Dershowitz. Alan Dershowitz is an American lawyer that is widely known for his work in U.S. constitutional law and American criminal law. When Netflix released Jeffrey Epstein, filthy rich Dershowitz came forward arguing many of the claims that were made. One claim he said was false was one made by Virginia Giuffre, saying that the two had engaged in sexual relations, which he said was false and Netflix knew that. Giuffre's accusations that she had sex with Professor Dershowitz are categorically false, and Professor Dershowitz has denied and disproved the accusations, including under oath subject to the penalties of perjury. The lawsuit read, Netflix did not take the lawsuit quietly, making a counterclaim against Dershowitz, alleging that the Harvard law professor was maliciously making an attempt to impede Netflix's free exercise of speech. Netflix claimed that Filthy Rich was an accurate portrayal based on public court findings, and that means that it's privileged as a true and fair report of judicial proceedings. Netflix is entitled to compensatory damages and punitive damages because Dershowitz commenced this action for the purpose and indeed for the sole purpose of harassing, intimidating, punishing, or otherwise maliciously inhibiting Netflix's free exercise of speech and petition. South Korea broadband. Squid Game was no doubt the biggest show of 2021. Everywhere you looked were Squid Game memes, articles, conversations, and lawsuits. After the incredible audience that Squid Game brought in, South Korea internet service provider SK Broadband sued Netflix over the cost of increased network traffic due to a large amount of incoming viewers watching the U.S. firm's content. The Seoul court claimed that Netflix should reasonably be entitled to give something back to the internet provider for network usage, along with multiple lawmakers speaking out and saying that content providers should have to pay for network usage after generating explosive traffic. Netflix holds the spot for second largest data traffic generator right after YouTube, and the two are the only ones who do not pay network usage fees, even though content providers like Apple, Facebook, and Amazon are paying. The year prior to the lawsuit, Netflix had brought in its own lawsuit against SK to discuss whether they were obligated to pay SK for network usage, arguing that the duties of Netflix ends with the creating the content and then making and leaving the content accessible, saying that SK's expenses were incurred while it was fulfilling its contractual obligations to the internet users. Carole Baskin. While Squid Game was the biggest show of 2021, Tiger King was the biggest show of 2020. A documentary that explores the world of Big Cat Rescue Facility drew people in because of how insanely crazy the show was. People loved the show, but they did not love it as much as Carole Baskin despised. Baskin claimed that the show did ask for permission to use footage of her in the show, and she did allow it, thinking that the series would actually focus solely on the big cats, but she would soon realize that the show would focus focus more on the wacky characters that own them. After the first season wrapped up, Baskin had thought she was done with the show, but when she saw that she appeared in the second season, she struck up a lawsuit. Netflix came forward and said that they had indeed signed releases in 2019 that explicitly permit the footage to be used in later projects. Netflix and Royal Goode Productions called for the claim to be denied, saying that thanks to Tiger King, Baskin had become a pop culture phenomenon. Also saying that Baskin had no claim at all, saying that her claim was simply a red herring that was void of any merit. Satanic Temple. Yeah, you heard that correctly. In 2018, the Satanic Temple sued Netflix. The Satanic Temple, which is a New York City religious organization, sued the streaming service, claiming that they used a statue of a deity called Baphomet, which was created by the organization. The statue was used as a symbol of evil in the Netflix series The Chilling Adventures of Sabrina. The Satanic Temple went on to say that they built the statue after raising $28,000 in a crowdfunding campaign in 2014. In an attempt to donate a satanic symbol to the state of Oklahoma, the Satanic Temple said the reasons they sued Netflix is out of fear that if they attempt to use the statue for protest, people will have watched Sabrina without knowing the history of the statue, will assume that the Satanic Temple copied the show, as opposed to the true, which is the total opposite. Lucien Greaves told CNBC of his frustration that some Netflix show with a production department who did a Google image search would just simply copy the statue. Also saying that a lot of people who have not heard of the temple first would simply recognize the monument as a Sabrina monument, which belittles the whole project. Sherlock Holmes. Of course, Netflix is not being sued by Sherlock Holmes due to the fact that he's a fictional character. It was instead the estate of the late author who sued them. To understand why they did so, we must first look at the facts. Netflix released the film Enola Holmes, which tells the story of Sherlock's sister. They bought the rights to Enola, but didn't buy Sherlock's rights because they didn't think they would need it. They had assumed so because the character of Sherlock Holmes is currently in the public domain, but only the first 50 of the detective's adventures are in the public domain. The last 10 are still under copyright. This is why the estate is suing. They allege that Netflix used events and character traits that only appear in the last 10 stories. Only after the events of World War I did Sherlock become nice and empathetic. The author's estate claims that the Sherlock in the film is too kind and emotional intelligence. This isn't the first lawsuit that has come from the author's estate. They have a bit of a reputation for being litigious. They frequently make claims that they usually don't end up winning. Monique. After Netflix offered actress and comedian Monique $500,000 to do a stand-up special, she turned it down. Not only did she turn them down, she accused them of gender and racial discrimination. Monique alleged that Netflix pays less money to comedians that are black and female, as opposed to those like Amy Schumer and Chris Rock, who were offered more than Monique for their comedy specials. Another widely known black female comedian came forward and said that she was offered less than half of what Monique was offered. The lawsuit read that despite Monique's incredible resume and her documented history of comedic success, and when Netflix presented her with an opportunity to have a show on their platform, they gave her a lowball offer, which they said was only a fraction of what they paid other comedians who weren't black females. When Monique complained about what they failed to continue negotiating with her, her lawyer stated that Netflix was out to convince the court that shutting down good faith negotiations because she raised concerns about pay discrimination is not retaliation under the law. Netflix had tried to get the case dismissed, but the court would end up signing with Monique, allowing the actress to continue on with her suit. The offer Netflix made Monique reeked of discrimination. It perpetuated the pay gap suffered by black women. Netflix has been constantly in and out of the news, lawsuits, controversies surrounding their new shows. Being worth $302.36 billion comes as no surprise that they'd have a trail of lawsuits behind them. Some of them are phony and only out for money, but some of them hold some serious weight and should be talked about more.